my son wrote. My wife comes first. If you keep calling, I'll block you for good. I read the message twice, then a third time. I didn't cry. I didn't type back a furious response. I just set the phone down on the cool marble of my kitchen counter, right next to the half-empty cup of Earl Grey tea. The house was silent, the kind of silence that usually brought me peace, but tonight it felt heavy, suffocating. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. My wife comes first. Those 4 words echoed in the empty room. I walked to the window and looked out at the garden I had planted 30 years ago. The roses were blooming, vibrant, and red, indifferent to the fact that my heart was quietly breaking inside my chest. I wasn't angry at David. Not yet. I was just stunned. My mind drifted back to a rainy Tuesday, 25 years ago. The day 2 police officers knocked on my door to tell me that my husband, Thomas, wouldn't be coming home from the construction site. David was only 5 years old then. I remembered holding him at the funeral, his small hand gripping my black dress so tight his knuckles turned white. Don't worry, Davy, I had whispered, kissing his forehead. It's you and me against the world now. Mom will never let you fall, and I kept that promise. God knows, I kept it. I was 32 when Thomas died. I was young. I had suitors, men who wanted to take care of me, men who could have made life easier, but I said no to all of them. I didn't want a stepfather to come in and change the dynamic. I wanted David to feel secure. I wanted to be enough. To support us, I worked double shifts at the hospital, ruining my back and my knees. But my real passion was my flower shop, Eleanor's Blooms. It was my sanctuary, my dream. But when David was in his 2nd year of college, he made a mistake, a gambling mistake. He called me, sobbing, saying he owed dangerous people $25,000. He was terrified. I didn't lecture him. I didn't hesitate. Within a week, I sold Eleanor's Blooms. I sold my dream to save his future. When I handed him the check, he hugged me and cried, I'll make it up to you, Mom. I promise I'll take care of you one day. I believed him. For years we were close. We were a team. Then came Isabella. She entered our lives 3 years ago like a hurricane wrapped in designer silk. She was beautiful, yes. An Instagram model with perfect hair and cold, calculating eyes. The first time David brought her home, she didn't offer to help with dinner. She walked around my living room, wrinkled her nose, and whispered loudly to David, It smells like old people in here. David didn't defend me. He just laughed nervously and said, Mom just likes antiques, babe. That was the beginning. The changes were subtle at first. David stopped coming for Sunday dinners. Isabella is tired, he'd say. Isabella doesn't like the drive, he'd excuse. Then the requests for money started increasing, while the phone calls decreased. And now this. If you keep calling, I'll block you. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. I saw a woman with gray hair and lines around her eyes. Lines etched by years of sacrifice for the boy who just threatened to erase me from his life. Something inside me shifted. It wasn't a snap, it was a quiet click, like a lock turning. I picked up my phone again. I didn't reply to his text. Instead, I opened my banking app. I looked at the recurring transfer scheduled for the 1st of the month. David's car payment, $800. My finger hovered over the screen. You want to block me, David? I whispered to the empty room. Then let's see how you handle it when I block you. I pressed cancel. Canceling that car payment was the first time I had said no to David in 5 years. It felt terrifying, but it also felt necessary. As I sat in the dark kitchen, the adrenaline began to fade. replaced by a dull, aching memory of how we got here. This didn't happen overnight. You don't wake up one morning and decide to block your own mother. It was a slow erosion, a death by 1,000 cuts. It started with the wedding 3 years ago. Isabella didn't want a church wedding. She wanted a destination experience at a vineyard in Napa Valley. "It's my special day, Eleanor," she had said, not looking at me but at her reflection in her phone screen. "I only get married once. I want it to be perfect." The budget was astronomical, $60,000. David came to me, pale and shaking. "Mom, we can't afford the deposit. Isabella is heartbroken. She's crying in the car." "It's a lot of money, David," I had said gently. "Maybe a smaller venue?" "You have Dad's life insurance money," he shot back. The entitlement in his voice shocked me, but I brushed it off as stress. "This is for my happiness, Mom. Don't you want me to be happy?" So, I wrote the check. I drained a significant portion of my retirement savings to pay for a wedding where I was seated at table 14, near the kitchen doors, while Isabella's parents, who hadn't contributed a dime, sat at the head table. I remembered looking at David that day. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, but he looked small next to her. He spent the whole night fetching her drinks, holding her train, anxious to please her. He didn't dance with me once. I thought that would be it. I thought once they were married, they would settle down. I was a fool. 6 months later, they came over for dinner. It was the first time they'd visited in weeks. Isabella was surprisingly warm. She complimented my pot roast. She asked about my garden. I should have known. After dessert, the pitch came. "I'm suffocating at my reception job," Isabella sighed dramatically. "I have a vision, Eleanor. A luxury organic skincare line, Bella's Glow. It's going to be huge. She just needs startup capital." David chimed in, squeezing her hand. "Product development, branding, a website. How much?" I asked, already feeling the pit in my stomach. $15,000, Isabella said, without blinking. I hesitated. "David, I'm on a fixed income now. The wedding took a lot." Isabella's face hardened instantly. She pulled her hand away from David's. David panicked. "Mom, please. This is her dream. If you help us now, we'll pay you back with the first month's profits. I promise." "It's an investment." I wrote the check. Again, a $15,000. I never saw a single bottle of Bella's Glow. 2 weeks later, I saw photos on Instagram. They were in Tulum, Mexico. Isabella was posing in a designer bikini, holding a cocktail. The caption read, "Living my best life. Number boss babe, number self-care." When I called David to ask about the business, he got defensive. "We needed a mental break to get the creative juices flowing, Mom. Why are you always counting our pennies?" That was the pattern. They took and I gave. They pushed and I retreated. But the real breaking point, the moment that shattered my heart completely, happened 4 days ago. I was carrying a box of Christmas decorations down from the attic. I wanted to be ready, just in case they decided to come this year. I missed a step. It happened in slow motion. The slip, the fall, the sickening crack as my ankle twisted beneath me, and the hard impact of the floor against my ribs. I lay there for 20 minutes, gasping for air, the pain radiating up my leg like fire. I couldn't stand. My phone was on the kitchen counter, just out of reach. I had to crawl, 63 years old, dragging myself across the hardwood floor, tears streaming down my face. Not just from pain, but from the humiliation of it. I finally reached the phone and called an ambulance. I spent 3 days in the hospital. Fractured ankle, 2 bruised ribs. The first night, lying in that sterile hospital bed, listening to the beeping of the monitors, I called David. It went to voicemail. "David, It's Mom. I've had an accident. I'm at Street Mary's Hospital. Please call me. The second day, the nurse, a kind woman named Sarah, asked me, "Is anyone coming to pick up your discharge papers, Mrs. Vance?" "My son," I said, my voice trembling. He's just very busy at work." I called him again. Voicemail. I texted, "David, I'm in the hospital. I need help getting home. I need someone to bring me clothes. Read at 2:14 p.m. No response. On the third day, the doctor told me I could go home. But I couldn't drive. I needed assistance. I called David one last time. This time, he picked up. But before he spoke, I heard it. Music, loud, thumping bass, the sound of glasses clinking, laughter. "What?" David shouted into the phone. He sounded annoyed, like I had interrupted something important. "David," I choked out, "did you get my messages? I've been in the hospital for 3 days." "Oh, that," he said dismissively. "Yeah, I saw them. Mom, look, it's really a bad time." "A bad time?" I gripped the hospital sheets. "I have a broken ankle. I'm alone. We're at Isabella's birthday weekend," he shouted over the noise. "We're at the lake house. I can't just leave. It would ruin her vibe." Her vibe. I lay there, stunned. My pain, my fear, my hunger, none of it mattered as much as Isabella's vibe. "David," I said, my voice hardening, "I am your mother. I am asking you for help. I need you to come home." There was a pause. I heard Isabella's voice in the background, shrill and demanding. "Who is that? Is she bothering you again? Tell her to stop ruining my party." David came back on the line. His voice was cold, distinct. "Mom, stop the drama. You're fine. You always survive." "I need you," I whispered. "My wife comes first," he snapped. "If you keep calling and harassing us while we're trying to celebrate, I'll block you for good. Figure it out yourself." Click. The line went dead. I sat in that hospital bed, staring at the white wall, the $60,000 wedding, the $15,000 business loan, the car payments I made every month so they could drive a Lexus while I drove a 10-year-old Toyota, the years of silence, the missed holidays, and now this. He left me in a hospital so he wouldn't ruin a party funded, most likely, by the money I had given them. I didn't cry then. The tears had dried up. Instead, a cold, sharp clarity washed over me. It was the realization that the son I loved was gone. He had been replaced by a stranger who viewed me as nothing more than a resource, an ATM that had developed a glitch. "You're right, David," I said to the silence. "I always survive." I called a taxi. I paid the driver extra to help me up the front steps of my house. I dragged myself into the kitchen, made that cup of Earl Grey tea, and sat there until the sun went down. And then his text came through, confirming what he said on the phone. "My wife comes first. If you keep calling, I'll block you for good." That brought me back to the present moment. The canceled car payment was just the beginning. I looked around my house. It was a beautiful house, 4 bedrooms, paid off years ago by my hard work and Thomas's insurance. David and Isabella lived in a condo downtown. A condo I had put the down payment on. A condo that was technically, legally, in my name because their credit scores were too low at the time. I had let them live there rent-free for 3 years. "Just pay the utilities and the HOA fees," I had said. "Save your money for your future." I reached for my purse and pulled out my address book. I didn't call David. I turned the page to Helen. Helen was my neighbor, a retired paralegal with a sharp tongue and a heart of gold. She had been warning me about Isabella for years, but I had been too blind to listen. I dialed her number. It was 9:30 p.m., but she answered on the second ring. "Eleanor?" she asked. concern evident in her voice. I haven't seen your lights on in 3 days. Is everything okay? No, Helen, I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. Everything is wrong. But I'm about to fix it. What happened? I need the name of that lawyer you used for your estate planning. The shark. Patricia? Patricia Henderson, Helen said immediately. Why? What did they do? They left me in the hospital, Helen. And then they threatened to block me. There was a silence on the other end, followed by the sound of Helen setting down a glass. I'm coming over, she said. I'm bringing soup, and I'm bringing Patricia's private cell number. Don't you move. I hung up the phone. I took a sip of my tea. It was cold, but I didn't mind. The pain in my ankle was throbbing, reminding me with every pulse of my son's betrayal. He wanted distance? He wanted me to stop harassing him with my needs? Fine. He was about to learn that the only thing worse than a needy mother is a mother who no longer needs you at all. But first, I had some digging to do. I opened my laptop and logged into the joint bank account I still shared with David, the one I used to transfer money to him. He probably thought I never looked at the statements. I clicked on recent transactions. My eyes widened. The Bella's Glow business account wasn't buying bottles or essential oils. There were charges for the Sapphire Lounge, $400, luxury car rental, $1,000, $200 gym membership, gold tier, $200, and then a recurring payment to an account name I didn't recognize. Marcus Fit, LLC, $1,500 a month. Every month. For personal training. Isabella didn't just have a spending problem. She had secrets. Helen arrived 20 minutes later. She didn't knock. She commanded the door with a series of sharp raps that echoed the urgency of the situation. When I hobbled to let her in, leaning heavily on the wall for support, her face fell. Helen was 70, a retired paralegal who dyed her hair a defiant shade of auburn and wore bright red lipstick to the grocery store. She was the toughest woman I knew, but seeing me pale, bruised, dragging a swollen foot brought tears to her eyes. "Oh, Eleanor," she whispered, stepping inside and locking the door behind her. "Look at you." She didn't ask if I was okay. She knew I wasn't. She guided me to the sofa, propped my leg up on pillows, and went straight to the kitchen. I heard the clinking of bowls, the hum of the microwave. "Chicken noodle," she called out. "Homemade! And don't you dare tell me you're not hungry." As I ate, the warmth of the soup seeping into my cold bones, I told her everything. I told her about the fall, the ambulance ride alone. I told her about the 3 days of silence, and then I told her about the call. He said he couldn't leave the party. I said, my voice barely a whisper, because it would ruin Isabella's vibe. Helen stopped spooning soup. She set the bowl down on the coffee table with a clack that sounded like a gunshot. "Her vibe?" Helen repeated, her voice low and dangerous. "Yes." And then he texted me. "My wife comes first. If you keep calling, I'll block you for good." Helen stood up and paced the room. "That little." She trailed off, using a word I hadn't heard since her husband, Frank, tried to fix the plumbing himself. "He's not just ungrateful, Eleanor. He's cruel." And she. Helen pointed a manicured finger at the ceiling. "She is a predator. I told you 3 years ago when she wore white to your birthday party that she was trouble." "I know," I admitted. "I was blind." Because happy men don't abandon their mothers in hospitals. Controlled men do. Brainwashed men do. She sat back down and took my hand. "So, what are we going to do? Are we going to cry, or are we going to fight?" I looked at the bank statement still open on my laptop screen. The $1,500 charged to Marcus Fit, LLC. "We're going to fight," I said. "But I need a weapon." Helen grinned, a shark-like expression that made her look 20 years younger. "I'll call Patricia." Get your paperwork ready, honey. We're going to war. The next morning, Helen drove me to the law offices of Henderson, Tate, and Associates. The building was all glass and steel, located in the financial district. It was intimidating, but not as intimidating as the woman waiting for us in the corner office. Patricia Henderson was a legend in our town. She was in her late 50s, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and eyes that could spot a lie from across the street. She didn't look like a grandmother. She looked like a gladiator in a silk blouse. "Eleanor," Patricia said, shaking my hand firmly. She didn't offer pity for my cast. She offered a seat. Helen gave me the highlights: hospital abandonment, threats of estrangement, possible financial misappropriation. Is that accurate? Yes, I said, sliding a thick manila folder across her mahogany desk. What's this? Everything, I said. The deed to the condo they live in, the title to the Lexus David drives, the bank statements showing the transfers for the wedding, the business loan, the monthly allowances. And I paused. The printout of the text message he sent yesterday. Patricia put on her reading glasses and opened the folder. The room was silent for 10 minutes, save for the turning of pages and Patricia's occasional, Finally, she took off her glasses and looked at me. You've been very generous, Eleanor. I've been a fool, I corrected. The law doesn't punish you for being a generous mother, Patricia said sharply. You bought this 3 years ago. Cash down payment, mortgage in your name. Yes, I told them they could live there until they saved enough to buy it from me. Is there a lease agreement? No, just a verbal agreement. Family. Patricia sighed. Mistake number 1, but without a lease, they are at-will tenants. In this state, that means we only need to give them a 30-day notice to vacate. No reason required. Eviction? I felt a pang of guilt. Patricia, that's their home. Is it? Patricia raised an eyebrow. Or is it your investment that they are occupying while treating the investor like garbage? Eleanor, he threatened to block you. He threatened to cut you out of his life. If you are not in his life, why should he be in your house? Her logic was cold, hard, and undeniable. Draft the notice, I said, my voice steady. Good. Now, the car. Patricia pulled out the vehicle title. It's in your name? Yes, for the insurance rates. Then it's your car. You can take it back whenever you want. Do you have a spare key? I nodded. In my kitchen drawer. We'll arrange for a repossession service. Or, she smiled thinly, since you have a key, we can just go get it. It's not theft if it's your property. And the money? I asked. The bank accounts need to be severed immediately. I'll draft a revocation of any power of attorney you might have signed. We'll update your will today. As of this moment, David is disinherited. Hearing the word disinherited made my stomach churn. This was my son, my baby. But then I remembered the hospital room, the empty chair, the vibe. Do it, I said. There is one more thing, Patricia said, pulling out the bank statement I had flagged. This charge. Marcus Fit, LLC. $1,500 a month. It's supposed to be a gym, I said. Or a trainer. For $1,500? Patricia looked skeptical. That's the price of a mortgage in some places. And look at the dates. The charges happen on the 14th of every month. But look here. She pointed to another transaction. Hotel Decca. Room service, $300, dated the 14th of last month. Hotel Decca is a boutique hotel downtown, Patricia noted. Why would your daughter-in-law need a hotel room in the same city she lives in on the same day she pays her trainer? The implication hung in the air like smoke. You think? I started. I don't think. I verify, Patricia said. She pressed a button on her intercom. Send in Mr. Vance. Mr. Vance? I asked, confused. My husband's last name was Vance. No relation, Patricia assured me. Arthur Vance. He's the private investigator I use for high net worth divorces. If Isabella is spending your money on something illicit, Arthur will find it. A moment later, a man in a rumpled beige coat walked in. He looked nothing like a TV detective. He looked like a tired accountant. Arthur, this is Eleanor, Patricia said. We have a daughter-in-law with expensive tastes and a suspicious gym schedule. I need to know who Marcus's is, and I need to know what happens on the 14th. Arthur nodded, taking the file. The 14th is in 2 days, he grunted. Exactly, Patricia said. Eleanor, go home. Rest your ankle. Don't answer David's calls. Let the eviction notice be his first clue that the bank of Mom is closed. What if they come to my house? I asked, the fear creeping back in. Patricia leaned forward, her eyes locking onto mine. Let them come. You have the deed. You have the title. And you have me. Let them come, and we will show them what happens when they bite the hand that feeds them. I left the office feeling lighter than I had in years. I had a plan. I had an army. And in 2 days, I would have the truth. But I didn't know that the truth would be far uglier than even Patricia suspected. The next 48 hours were a study in contrast. Inside my house, it was quiet. Helen came over to help me water the plants and change my bandages. We drank tea. We watched old movies. It was peaceful. But outside, a storm was brewing. It started at 10 a.m. on the 13th. That was the moment the process server taped the eviction notice to the door of the condo. 30 days to vacate. It was official, legal, irreversible. At 10:15 a.m., my phone lit up. David. Then again. David. Then a text. Mom? What is this? There is a sheriff at our door. Then another. Are you insane? You can't kick us out. This is our home. And finally, pick up the phone. Isabella is having a panic attack. I sat at my kitchen table, watching the notifications scroll down the screen like credits at the end of a tragedy. He threatened to block you, Helen reminded me, sipping her coffee. Looks like he unblocked you pretty fast when the free ride ended. He's panicking, I said, a flicker of maternal instinct trying to rise up. Good, Helen said coldly. Panic brings out the truth. I didn't answer. I didn't reply. I let the phone ring until the battery drained to 15%. By the afternoon, the tone of the messages had shifted from anger to bargaining. Mom, please. We don't have first and last month's rent for a new place. Mom, Isabella says, she's sorry about the party. We can talk. Mom, I can't believe you're doing this to your own son. Reading that last one hurt. Doing this to my own son. As if I was the villain. As if I hadn't spent 30 years being his shield, his bank, his safety net. I'm not doing this to you, David, I whispered to the screen. I'm doing this for you. You just don't know it yet. The 14th arrived. The day of the recurring $1,500 charge. I spent the morning staring at the clock. Arthur, the private investigator, was out there somewhere, watching, at 2 p.m. Patricia called. It's done, she said. Her voice was clipped, professional, but I heard a heaviness in it. Arthur is back. You need to come in, Eleanor. Did he find anything? He found everything. Bring Helen. When we walked into the conference room an hour later, the mood was funeral somber. Arthur had spread a series of high-resolution photographs across the polished table. My heart hammered against my ribs. I braced myself for bad news. But I wasn't prepared for the sheer tawdriness of it. This is Isabella at 11 a.m., Arthur said, pointing to the first photo. She was walking out of a bank. Not just any bank, my bank. She cashed a check, Arthur explained, drawn from the Bella's Glow business account. $1,500. Cash. But the statement said Marcus Fit LLC, I said, confused. Shell company, Patricia said. She writes it down as a vendor payment in the books, but she's withdrawing cash. And here she is at 11:30 a.m., Arthur continued. The photo showed Isabella sitting at an outdoor cafe. She looked radiant, happier than I had ever seen her with David. Across from her sat a man. He was young, maybe 25. Muscles bulging out of a tight t-shirt, sunglasses, perfect teeth. Marcus? I guessed. Marcus, Arthur confirmed. Real name Marcus Thorne, personal trainer, part-time model, full-time grifter. In the next photo, Isabella was sliding an envelope across the table to him. The envelope was thick. There's your money, Helen muttered, shaking her head. But the next photo was the one that made me look away. Marcus was reaching across the table, holding Isabella's hand. He was kissing her knuckles. Isabella was throwing her head back, laughing. It was the intimacy of it, the ease. She looked at him with a hunger she had never shown my son. They went to the Hotel Decca at 12:45 p.m., Arthur said, sliding the final photo forward. They emerged at 3 p.m. Room service records show champagne and oysters. I felt sick, physically sick. My son was working 60 hours a week at a job he hated to support her lifestyle. I had drained my retirement to fund her business. And she was using that money, our money, to pay a boyfriend to sleep with her in a hotel room down the street. There's more, Patricia said softly. She opened a file on her laptop. We ran a background check on Bella's Glow. Eleanor, the company doesn't exist. She never filed for an LLC. She never bought inventory. She never built a website. So the $15,000, gone, Arthur said. Spent on Marcus, clothes for him, car rentals for him, and... He paused, checking his notes. We found a lease application. A lease? Isabella and Marcus applied for an apartment in Miami yesterday. They listed their move-in date as next month. The room spun. She's leaving him, I whispered. She's planning to, Patricia corrected. She's waiting for one last thing. Do you know what David's bonus structure is at work? He gets a performance bonus in December, I said. Usually around $10,000. That's in 2 weeks, Helen noted. She's going to wait for the bonus, Arthur surmised. Take that too, and then disappear to Miami with Marcus. My anger, which had been a cold, hard knot in my chest, suddenly ignited into a wildfire. She wasn't just cheating on him. She was cannibalizing him. She was going to leave my son broken, bankrupt, and alone, while she laughed on a beach in Miami with a boy bought with my money. Can we have her arrested? Helen asked, slamming her hand on the table. For the affair? No, Patricia said. For the fraud? Maybe. Soliciting funds for a fake business is wire fraud, but a criminal case takes months. We need to stop the bleeding now. Patricia looked at me. You have the evidence, Eleanor. You hold all the cards. The question is, how do you want to play them? I looked at the photo of Isabella laughing. I looked at the eviction notice copy. I thought about David's text. My wife comes first. He was defending a woman who was actively destroying him. He was blind. I had to force his eyes open. And it was going to hurt. I want them out, I said, my voice trembling with rage. I want her out of my house, out of my money, and out of my son's life. Tonight. Tonight? Patricia asked. David called me 10 times today, I said. He's desperate. He's coming to the house. I can feel it. He thinks he can bully me into rescinding the eviction. I gathered the photos and the file. I'll be waiting for him. Patricia nodded slowly. Arthur, burn these photos onto a flash drive. Print 2 copies, one for Eleanor, one for David. Be careful, Eleanor, Patricia warned as we stood to leave. When a narcissist gets cornered, they don't cry. They attack. Let her attack, I said, clutching the folder to my chest like a shield. I'm not the one with secrets anymore. Helen drove me home in silence. The winter sun was setting, casting long, dark shadows across the road. As we pulled into my driveway, I saw it, the Lexus. It was parked crookedly, half on the grass. David was pacing on the front porch. Isabella was sitting on the steps, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking. They were early. Are you ready for this? Helen asked, turning off the engine. I looked at the folder in my lap, the smoking gun. No, I admitted. But a mother does what she has to do. I opened the car door. Showtime, Helen whispered, following me out. David didn't wait for me to get out of the car. He stormed across the lawn. His face flushed a dangerous shade of crimson in the twilight. What the hell is wrong with you? He shouted, slamming his hand against the hood of Helen's sedan. The sound rang out like a gunshot in the quiet neighborhood. Helen flinched, but I didn't. I opened the door and stepped out, careful with my cast, placing my crutches on the pavement with deliberate slowness. Hello, David, I said. My voice was ice. You're blocking the driveway. Blocking the driveway? David laughed, a manic, hysterical sound. You put an eviction notice on our door. A sheriff, Mom. A uniformed sheriff pasted a neon orange sticker on our condo for all the neighbors to see. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? It was a legal notice, I replied, adjusting my coat. Patricia said it was the proper procedure. Patricia? Isabella looked up from the steps. Her mascara was running in perfect, tragic streaks down her cheeks. You got a lawyer? To fight your own family? She stood up, wobbling slightly, a performance designed to elicit sympathy. She rushed toward me, hands clasped. Eleanor, please! I know we've had our differences, but this is insane. We're homeless. You can't just throw us on the street in the middle of winter. Actually, Helen interjected, stepping out of the driver's side and crossing her arms. She can. It's her house, and you haven't paid rent in. Oh, that's right. Never. Shut up, Helen, David snapped, turning on her. This is family business. You have no right to be here. She stays, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it stopped David in his tracks. Helen is my witness, and if you shout at her one more time, I will call the police and have you removed for trespassing. Do you understand? David stared at me, his mouth slightly open. He looked at the mother he thought he knew, the pushover, the check writer, the silent supporter, and saw a stranger. Let's go inside, I said, hobbling toward the front door. We are not going to air our laundry for the neighbors. The walk to the living room felt like a funeral procession. I sat in my favorite armchair, the high-backed velvet one Thomas had bought me for our 10th anniversary. Helen stood behind me like a sentinel. David and Isabella sat on the sofa. They sat close together, Isabella clutching David's arm, her head resting on his shoulder. It was a tableau of us against the world. If I didn't know the truth, it would have been touching. Now, knowing what was on the flash drive in my purse, it was nauseating. Fix this, Mom. David started, his voice dropping to a low, threatening register. Call your lawyer. Rescind the eviction. Transfer the title of the car to my name so we don't have to worry about you stealing it back. Stealing? I raised an eyebrow. It's in my name, David. It was a gift, Isabella shrieked. You gave it to us. I allowed you to use it, I corrected. Just like I allowed you to live in my condo. Just like I allowed you to drain my retirement for a wedding and a business that doesn't exist. The room went deadly silent. Isabella froze. Her eyes darted to David, then back to me. What do you mean, doesn't exist? David asked, frowning. Bella's Glow is launching next month. We're just Having supply chain issues. Is that what she told you? I looked at Isabella. Supply chain issues? Isabella sat up straighter, her jaw tightening. You don't understand entrepreneurship, Eleanor. You worked in a flower shop. High-end cosmetics is a different world. It must be, I agreed. A world where $15,000 vanishes without a single invoice. Stop it. David slammed his hand on the coffee table. Stop attacking her. This isn't about the business. This is about you being jealous. Jealous? I blinked. Yes, jealous. David stood up, pacing the room. You can't stand that I love her more than you. You can't stand that she comes first. That's why you're doing this. You're trying to punish me for having a wife. He stopped in front of me, pointing a finger in my face. Well, guess what, Mom? You win. You proved you have the power. You have the money, but you don't have me. He took a deep breath. Delivering the ultimatum he must have rehearsed in the car. If you don't drop this eviction and write us a check for $10,000 to cover our emotional distress and moving costs, I am cutting you off. Completely. Isabella nodded vigorously behind him. No holidays, David continued. No calls. And if we have children, you will never see them. You will die alone in this big, empty house, knowing that you chose your money over your own blood. The threat hung in the air. You will never see your grandchildren. It was the cruelest weapon a child could wield against a parent. For a moment, I felt the old panic rise. The fear of loneliness. The fear of being the bitter old woman Isabella accused me of being. But then I looked at Isabella. She wasn't looking at David with pride or love. She was looking at my antique clock on the mantel, probably calculating how much she could sell it for. She was checking her watch, checking the time, thinking about Marcus. Are you done? I asked quietly. David blinked, deflated by my lack of reaction. What? Are you done threatening me? I'm not threatening you. I'm promising you, David spat. Choose right now. Us or your money. I reached into my purse. My hand brushed against the cool plastic of the flash drive, but I opted for the manila folder instead. The physical photos. There was something undeniable about printed ink. I choose you, David, I said softly. David's shoulders relaxed. A smug smile tugged at the corner of Isabella's lips. She thought she had won. She thought I had caved, just like always. I knew you'd see reason, David sighed, reaching out as if to hug me. Sit down, I ordered. David stopped. What? I said. Sit down. I chose you. That means I chose to save you from the parasite sitting on my sofa. Excuse me? Isabella gasped. Did you just call me a parasite? Actually, Helen chimed in, I think parasite is too kind. Con artist is more accurate. Or perhaps adulteresses? Don't you dare talk to my wife like that, David roared, turning purple. Come on, Bella. We're leaving. We'll see you in court. He grabbed Isabella's hand and pulled her up. David, look at the table, I said. My voice was calm, commanding. The voice of a mother who had bandaged his knees and chased away his nightmares. I threw the folder onto the coffee table. It slid across the polished wood and fanned open. The photos spilled out. Glossy, high resolution, undeniable. The top photo showed Isabella kissing Marcus's hand at the cafe. The second photo showed them walking into the Hotel Decca. The third photo showed the bank withdrawal slip. What is this? David asked, his voice trembling. He didn't want to look, but he couldn't look away. That, I said, is where your money went, David. That is why your wife needs $15,000. And that is why she comes first. But only until she gets your Christmas bonus. Isabella lunged. She didn't cry this time. She moved with the speed of a cornered animal diving for the photos. Those are fake! Those are AI! She screamed, clawing at the table. But Helen was faster. She snatched the folder away. Ah, Helen tutted. We have digital copies, sweetie. And the private investigator is ready to testify. David stood frozen. The silence in the room was heavier than the grave. He looked at the photo on the floor, the one of Isabella laughing with Marcus, a look of pure, unadulterated lust on her face. Then he looked at Isabella. Bella, he whispered. Who is that? Who is that? David asked again, his voice cracking. He pointed a shaking finger at the man in the photo, the man wearing sunglasses and a smirk, with Isabella's hand resting intimately on his knee. Isabella's face went through a rapid series of contortions. First shock, then fear, and finally, a desperate, ugly rage. It's my branding consultant, she shrieked, looking wildly between David and me. Marcus, he's helping me with the launch strategy for Bella's Glow. It's strictly professional. Professional. I picked up the receipt from the Hotel Decca. Does professional branding usually involve a 3-hour room service bill for oysters and champagne at a boutique hotel on a Tuesday afternoon? I slid the paper across the table. Room 402, David. Checked in under M. Thorne, Guest added. I. Vance. David picked up the receipt. He stared at it like it was written in an alien language. Tuesday, he muttered. Last Tuesday? You told me you were at a supplier meeting. You told me your phone died. I was, Isabella cried, grabbing David's arm. Your mother is faking this. She hired someone to print these. She hates me, David. She wants to destroy our marriage because she's a lonely, bitter old hag who can't stand to see us happy. Don't you touch him, Helen said sharply. David, look at the dates, I said, my voice cutting through Isabella's hysteria. Look at the bank withdrawal, $1,500 cash, the exact amount you transfer to her for business expenses every month. David looked. The math was simple, brutal. You gave him my money? David whispered, looking at Isabella with horror. I worked overtime. I missed my friend's wedding to pick up extra shifts. I haven't bought new shoes in 2 years, so you could have your dream. And you gave it to him? Isabella's grip on his arm tightened, her nails digging into his jacket. David, baby, listen to me. It's an investment. Marcus has connections. We need him. There is no business, Isabella. I slammed my hand on the table, finally letting my anger show. My investigator checked. No LLC, no inventory, no website. Bella's Glow is a ghost. It's a scam. Isabella froze. The color drained from her face. And there's one more thing, I said, pulling out the final piece of paper, the one Arthur had found at the very end. The lease application. What lease? David asked, his eyes dull. An apartment in Miami, I read aloud. Applicants: Marcus Thorne and Isabella Vance. Move-in date: January 5th. I looked at my son. January 5th. David, 5 days after your annual performance bonus hits your account. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He staggered back, pulling his arm away from Isabella as if she burned him. You were going to leave me, he breathed. You were going to wait for my bonus check. Isabella looked at the lease application on the table. She realized the game was over. The act dropped. Her posture changed instantly. She stopped hunching. She stopped crying. She stood up straight, crossed her arms, and looked at David with pure, unadulterated contempt. God, you are pathetic, she sneered. The change was so sudden, so vicious, that David flinched. I said, you're pathetic, Isabella spat. Look at you, crying to your mommy. Do you know how exhausting it is to pretend to love you, David? You're boring. You're weak. You have no ambition. I supported you, David shouted, tears streaming down his face. You gave me pennies. She laughed, a cruel, sharp sound. You work a middle management job and drive a car your mother pays for. Marcus is a real man. He has dreams. He has fire. He's a grifter living off my retirement fund, I interjected. Isabella whirled on me. And you! You hold on to your money like it's the only thing that makes you valuable. Well, guess what, Eleanor? It is. Nobody loves you. David only tolerates you because I told him we needed the inheritance. But now? She looked around the room, sneering at my antique furniture. Now, I'm done. I'm done with this dusty house. I'm done with your loser son. She grabbed her designer purse bought with my money and headed for the door. I'm taking the Lexus, she threw over her shoulder. No, you're not, I said calmly. I pressed a button on my key fob in my pocket. Outside, the car alarm chirped once. I had the locks recoded this afternoon at the dealership while Helen drove me. I lied. It was actually a remote disable feature. Patricia had advised me to install on the GPS tracker, but Isabella didn't need to know the technicalities. And I have the only working key. Isabella stopped at the door. She turned back, her face twisted in fury. Fine. Keep your trash. I'll call an Uber. Marcus is picking me up anyway. She looked at David one last time. Don't follow me. Don't call me. And don't worry about the divorce papers. My lawyer will send them to your mother's house, since that's clearly where you belong. She slammed the door so hard, the pictures on the wall rattled. The silence that followed was heavy, filled only by the sound of David's ragged breathing. He stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by the scattered photos of his wife's betrayal. He looked like a man who had survived a bomb blast, shell-shocked, trembling, stripped of everything he thought was real. He looked at the door where she had vanished. Then he looked at me, his face crumpled. Mom, he choked out. He collapsed onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands, and began to sob. Not the polite crying of a man trying to save face, but the deep, guttural wailing of a child who is hurt. I didn't know, he sobbed. I swear to God, Mom. I didn't know. I thought she loved me. I thought I was putting my wife first. You were, I said softly, watching him, but she was putting herself first. Helen stood up quietly and went to the kitchen to give us a moment, but she left the door ajar. I looked at my son. Part of me, the mother part, wanted to rush over, wrap my arms around him and tell him it was going to be okay. To tell him that I would fix it, pay off his debts, and let him move back into his old room. But then I remembered the hospital. I remembered the text. If you keep calling, I'll block you. I remembered that he had stood in this very room 10 minutes ago and threatened to cut me off from my future grandchildren. He was a victim of Isabella, yes. But he had been a willing executioner of our relationship. I didn't move from my armchair. I let him cry. I let him feel the weight of his choices. After a long time, David wiped his face with his sleeve and looked up at me. His eyes were red and swollen. I'm so sorry, Mom, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Please, I have nowhere to go. She drained our joint account. I can't go back to the condo, the memories, the eviction. He looked at me with pleading eyes. Can I stay here? Just for a while? Until I get back on my feet? This was the moment. The moment every parent dreads but must face. The moment where love means saying no. I looked at my cast. I looked at the eviction notice on the table. No, David, I said. His eyes widened. What? You cannot stay here, but I'm your son. Yes, I said, my voice trembling slightly but remaining firm. You are my son, and because I love you, I will not let you hide in your childhood bedroom. You are a 30-year-old man. You threatened to block me. You chose your partner. Now you must handle the fallout. But I have no money, he panicked. I have no car. You have a job, I reminded him. You have legs, and you have a lesson to learn that I cannot buy your way out of. I reached into my purse and pulled out a check. I had written it earlier, just in case. Here is $500, I said, placing it on the table next to the photos of Marcus. That is enough for a week at a motel and some groceries? The eviction stands. You have 30 days to clear your things out of the condo. Mom, he gasped, looking at the check like it was an insult. I suggest you go, I said, before I change my mind about the $500. David stared at me. He looked for the pushover Eleanor. She wasn't there. He slowly reached out, took the check, and stood up. He looked small, defeated, but for the first time in years, he looked awake. I deserve this, he whispered. Yes, I said. You do. He walked to the door. He didn't slam it. He closed it softly behind him. I heard his footsteps fade down the driveway. Only then did I let out the breath I had been holding. Helen came back in with 2 fresh cups of tea. She didn't say anything. She just sat down beside me. Did I do the right thing? I asked, looking at the closed door. Helen took a sip of tea. You saved his life, Eleanor, she said. If you had let him stay, he would have remained a boy forever. Tonight, you forced him to become a man. I nodded. I looked out the window. It was dark now. My house was empty. My son was gone. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. But the story wasn't quite over. Isabella wasn't the type to disappear quietly. And David had a long road ahead of him. It has been 1 year since the night I closed the door on my son. 1 year since I chose to stop being a victim and started being a person. People often ask me, Eleanor, don't you miss him? And I tell them the truth. I miss the little boy he was, but I do not miss the man who let his wife treat me like garbage. And besides, I've been too busy to dwell on the past. Isabella's downfall was swift, brutal, and entirely of her own making. She didn't make it to Miami. Patricia, true to her word, had filed a report regarding the fraudulent business loans and the identity theft regarding the credit cards. 3 weeks after she stormed out of my house, Isabella was arrested at a luxury boutique in the city, trying to buy a handbag with a maxed-out card linked to a shell company. It turned out Marcus wasn't just a grifter, he was an informant. When the heat got turned up, he rolled over on her to save his own skin. He testified that the fake business, the structured withdrawals, the tax evasion, it was all Isabella's idea. She is currently serving 2 years for wire fraud and larceny. David divorced her from a distance. He didn't visit her in prison. Not once. And David? My son had a harder road. He lived in that cheap motel for 2 weeks on the $500 I gave him. When the money ran out, he didn't call me. He didn't beg. He slept in his car for 3 nights. He hit rock bottom. And then, slowly, painfully, he began to climb. He got a second job delivering pizzas in the evenings. He moved into a studio apartment the size of my walk-in closet. He sold the designer watches Isabella had forced him to buy. 6 months ago, I received a letter in the mail. There was no return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Inside, there was a check for $100. And a note. Mom, I know this is nothing compared to what I owe you. $15,000 plus $60,000. I have the numbers tattooed on my brain, but it's a start. I'm sorry. For everything. I'm working on becoming the man you raised, not the man I became. I love you. I didn't cash the check. I framed it. I haven't invited him back to Sunday dinner yet. We are not there, but we meet for coffee once a month. He looks tired. He looks older, but he also looks real. He listens when I talk. He asks about my life. Last week, he paid for my coffee. It was a $4 latte, but the look of pride on his face was worth $1 million. He is learning, and I am healing. As for me, I did something I should have done 20 years ago. I sold the big house. It was too full of ghosts, too full of memories of sacrifice and silence. I used my money to buy a small cottage with a perfect garden, just for me. And then I did the unthinkable. I went to the airport. I am writing this from a balcony in Florence, Italy. The sun is setting over the Arno River, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet. I am taking a painting class. I am drinking wine that costs more than $10 a bottle. I am laughing with new friends who know me simply as Eleanor, the woman with the sharp wit and the kind eyes, not Eleanor the ATM, not Eleanor the doormat. Helen is here with me. We are two old women exploring the world, refusing to be invisible. Yesterday, I saw a flower shop near the Ponte Vecchio. It reminded me of the shop I sold to save David. For a moment, I felt a pang of regret, but then I realized I didn't lose my dream. I just deferred it. Tomorrow, I'm going to inquire about a part-time job there. Just for fun. Just for the smell of roses. So, here is what I learned. Love is not about setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Love is not about silence. Love is not about letting your children break you just because you gave them life. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for them is to say, enough, to close the account, to change the locks, to let them fall, so they can finally learn how to stand. My son told me, my wife comes first. And he was right. Spouses should come first, but never at the expense of your dignity, never at the cost of your self-worth. I am Eleanor. I am a mother. But first and finally, I am myself. What would you have done in my place? Would you have let him stay? Or was I right to push him out? Tell me in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of justice and resilience. God bless you.